Hello, everybody. It's Michael Hollands once again for Sound of the Movies. Today I have the pleasure to be joined by Guillaume Roussel. On this episode, we will discuss in detail his work on Disney's Black Beauty, a film directed by Ashley Avis. It is my pleasure to welcome Guillaume Roussel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Michael, for having me.
It's great to have you on my show. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your schedule. I really appreciate that. And Guillaume, when were you approached about this Disney project, Black Beauty? Did you get the assignment as the filmmakers were particularly impressed by a previous score you wrote?
I think it all came from a recommendation that the one of the main producers of the movie, Jeremy Bolt, uh, have been submitting to the director Ashley Avis, and he said, "Hey, you should really meet Guillaume. I think he would be a great fit for the movie." I'm sure she took some time to listen to my music. We had a meeting then, and that was before she started shooting. So that's what was great about this project is that they were talking about music very early on, and so she came to the studio. We had a great meeting for 1 or 2 hours. We were talking about a lot of things, sharing some pieces of music that we both like, playing some music of mine, uh, and that's how it started because we really had a great connection on that meeting, and that was it. It just started like very instantly, very naturally, and after that meeting, she was convinced, and it was really natural, and that's how it started.
And now I would like to talk to you about the experience working with a writer director such as Ashley. Do you think this offers a better insight into the production music wise? How did you experience that?
It's a very interesting question because I think a director writer has a more uh, broad and more clear and more large vision of the movie because she has been diving into the movie while she was writing, and even if it's an adaptation of a book, so she really created a new world with new characters with so she knew exactly what she was talking about. And as far as the music, obviously I like to present ideas, to surprise the director with experiments and works. But at the same time, I like to have someone giving me direction, at least giving me things that I can feed. My brain can be picking, so I can experiment and go out there. But like I like to have directions, and actually really had a lot of to say about what what music she had in mind, what kind of mood or instrumentation could be some placeholders for me to experiment further. So it was great because she really had a lot of things to say about the music for her movie.
And of course, Guillaume, the story of Black Beauty is a well-known story. It has been told quite a few times before in the past. And how did you manage to bring in a new and fresh approach? How did you experience the story from your perspective, so to speak?
So in that regard, I think I um I was in a good place because actually I never read the book, and I only knew one movie, which is the one from the 90s that has been scored by Danny Elfman,
Yes.
and I only watched it. I think I watched it once, only one time. But my point is like um, I didn't have too much thoughts initially on that story because I didn't really. I mean, it wasn't part of my childhood. It wasn't part of my culture. So that's why I was genuinely. I had a fresh approach to that project because of the fact that I didn't really know that story that well compared to people here in America and I guess in a lot of other countries. Uh, the only problem I had really was that I love so much what Danny Elfman did on that score that I felt that expectation was suddenly very high in my own mind, and I tried from day one to not listen to that score again. Otherwise, I would probably be, suddenly not able to write a single note, because comparing to Danny Elfman's music, I wouldn't, I would feel so bad. I have such an admiration for his work because he's actually one of the very few composers that really um, marked my childhood, and that that um, that was very a life changer for me as far as inspiration. I very well remember Batman Returns, so Batman 2, as a epiphany moment for me, when I was like probably 13 or 14 years old, and I still remember that first scene of the movie when I was at the theater. That struck me. I was like so amazed by the music, and I that was probably the first score that I bought, that I went to buy. So it's really it changed my life, and so he is one of those figures, Danny Elfman, and I was like suddenly feeling, oh my God, I'm gonna be the one doing another try on that story after Danny. Oh my God, this is like something that really was frightening me actually. So I tried to forget about the only reference that I had about Black Beauty. So back to your question, I really didn't have so much attachment to that story, so that allowed me to, I guess, have a fresh approach to it.
Great. And Guillaume, I would like to talk about the evolution of the score from your first sketches to the final recording. What can you tell me about your initial ideas and the recording with the London Symphony Orchestra?
Well, it took us a long time actually. The process, since I've been involved very early on in the project, it took at least a year. So it was quite of a long period of time. So there is a lot to be said about this actually. Initially, the first idea I sketched were already kind of orchestrated with the computer, obviously. I was putting some guitars, and then the very first ideas. Um, Ashley quite liked it, but we were still, experimenting and searching for themes. And then suddenly I said to myself, I should probably go back to the simplest version of an idea, which is just a draft on the piano. And I really wanted to focus on the melody, and when I did that, I changed to that approach. Then I sent a theme to Ashley, and that's when she really responded to the music I was sending. She really loved one particular melody that I played on the piano, and that's how it started. That was the very first step, to have something that was really speaking to Ashley, with the piano solo, with a very simple, presentation, just a melody. And that's what I like about that movie, is that because we also were trying to pay homage to the 90s as well, is like to be able to write a piece of music that would just have a melody, you know. So that became something very important to us. And so once we found that melody that we liked so much, we obviously I was waiting to receive the first scenes, because this work of coming out with a melody I was doing while she was shooting. So we then the second step was to see how it was working on screen. So we started to put that theme on some scene, and it was working great. And then at I started doing more elaborated mock-ups, as we say, with strings, and then I started experimenting more sounds that would be more about beauty, because clearly the main theme is a piano theme that is attached to Joe, the main character, the teenager. And then for beauty, we starting looking for sounds that would be more otherworldly, based on synth, based on ethnic woodwinds that I would tweak to make it sound not so recognizable. So we really wanted to, do a big research on sounds for beauty as opposed to a melody for Joe. And then while she was working on the cut, editing the movie herself, I've been keeping writing as we were going, and by the time we were close to a lock cut, I've been writing more than 2 hours of music. That's the thing, is that this movie had a lot of music, but it was great to be able to accompany Ashley through the entire process of editing, so I could really get into her mindset, her world, and her vision of the movie. It was really good to have that much time, and obviously, the climax of all this was to be able to record with the LSO in London, which was the first time for me to work with that particular orchestra, which I've been a huge fan of since my childhood as well. Technically speaking, the only big frustration was the fact that we were not able to travel to London because of the pandemic, and so I was monitoring from my garage in between 1 in the morning and probably 7 in the morning.
Oh
So
God.
yeah, I had to adjust to that time zone, and I wanted to be really ready for that. So like I think it was like 4 days before the recording started, I started uh, to get up earlier in the morning, at 4 a.m., then at 3 a.m., 2 a.m., 1 a.m. So I wanted to do that gradually, adjustment, so I would be fresh and ready for the recordings, because you don't want to miss that opportunity to work with those guys. So yeah, more or less, I'm just giving you uh, a quick overview of the journey in between the first sketches and the recording. Um, but I mean, I don't know if you want me to go into more details, but more or less that was what happened.
Great. I mean, of course, the working with the London Symphony Orchestra is a huge privilege, and I'm also glad that Disney, greenlit the budget to work with this special orchestra, because I think those players are amongst the very best in the
Oh yeah.
world, and I can only imagine it must have been very special to work with them, even if you had to do it remotely. Which, I mean, I can imagine it also must have been a pity not being able to travel to London to listen to the sound of this world class orchestra in one recording hall,
Mhm.
in one room.
Yeah, especially in the air, which is a place which I definitely like very much. I've been lucky to go and record in Abbey Road as well, but like air is like a special place to me. I've been there many times, and it's a room that I like a lot.
Great. And Guillaume, you also said something which is very interesting, melody. And you also had to find the right balance between melody, sound, and also orchestration, because having a melody is one thing basically, but being able to flesh it out and give it the proper orchestration and sound is another thing. What can you tell me
Mm.
about that?
Well, that's something that always has been a major interest to me in music. Sounds in general. So it's either sounds coming from synth and sounds coming from the orchestra, and the combination of sounds. I come from a classical background, and my family has been always into music. My grandfather was a composer himself, and and I always have been, growing up in that uh, world of classical music and orchestral music, and I'm a huge fan. I've been studying so much, like Ravel and Debussy, and not only the French guys, but like I have to say that I was a lot into impressionism, and impressionism as well as fauvism, because I like so much Stravinsky and all that that genre as well. It's so much about sounds at the end of the day, how you combine sounds. It's not only about melody. It's not only about harmony. There is so many. The research about sounds and combination with the orchestra is so rich with those guys that have been learning this, and to me, it's always has been a passion, and passion that I've been have fulfilling as well through synthesizer, because I've been born in the early 80s, and this is something that I've been changing the game in the late 80s and early 90s, and samplers, most of all. So I've been always like, to me, it's so much fun to work with sounds, and so that's why, in Black Beauty, when it comes to orchestrating, it's something that I like so much doing, that for me it's very important. So as you said, one thing is the melody, and then depending on the scene, depending on what kind of colors you want to bring, and the fact to be that we are allowed now to mix the orchestra with the synth. I mean, there's uh, so many possibilities that it was very fun to kind of see how we could combine something very simple, very human, like the main character, that teenager, and combining that with that horse that we need to um, um, we need to find some music and sounds, so it can speak to the audience, so we can connect those two characters, because that was the main challenge. The horse has not so many expression, like in terms of facial expression. um, the body language is there, obviously, but it's quite limited, and obviously facial expression there is none. So you need to have the music helping making that connection with the human character, and that's through sounds and melody. But specifically speaking, on Beauty, the horse, the sounds were more there, and so making this combination with the orchestra took me a long time, because I wanted to find the right balance, and I didn't want it to. The other problem we had, not problem, but that challenge, was to try to not sound too much the 90s. We didn't want it to have something that would be uh, too old sounding, but we wanted to pay homage to those years. So again, orchestration wise, I really needed to find the right balance between something that would sound modern, but at the same time that would be like something we used to really enjoy back in the days. So it was big, interesting work I had to do on the orchestration. It's a modern kind of orchestration, because that's not a symphonic sound. It's a more modern hybrid, but still sometimes it does, the way it's orchestrated is something that is very old-fashioned as well.
Great, thank you very much for elaborating on that, Guillaume. And which part of the movie do you think needed the most attention music wise?
It's a good question. Mm. I think one of the key scenes was the scene when for the first time Beauty and Joe they get together, and there is that first contact. That, as this is how we call that scene after. So we call it the first contact scene, and that was a very important scene, because it's not easy at this point of the movie. It's still the beginning of the movie. It's probably 20 minutes. You wanna be strong, but at the same time you need to keep some kind of leverage in terms of emotion and music strength for later on. It's just the beginning of the movie, but at the same time it's a very key moment where their friendship is starting. So that was a key moment where we kept adjusting, where we start the melody. Should we have a lighter orchestration, or maybe stronger? have a silence there. I mean, silence is so much important. So yeah, that scene was very very important, and we tweaked it until the very last moment.
Great. And of course, the process of underscoring romance and also elegance and drama was also very important. I mean, you had to deal with the relationship between Joe and Beauty, and Joe and her uncle John, and there was Joe and the person who became her boyfriend,
Hmm.
George, and also, of course, the horses, Beauty and Ginger, for instance. So you had to, let's say, focus on all these elements and create one big organic sound, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. That was another challenge. Yeah, because you don't want to create too many elements that at the end of the day would be overwhelming the audience. I mean, I think for that movie, we really wanted to have something that is as pure in a sense, like the simpler version of what we can do, because this movie is very sincere. It's very nature driven. You know, there's no CGI. It's like something that is very natural in a way that it should be it should not come out from many um, artificial um, elements. Like, we don't want the music to overstate, overplay, oversell the ideas. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
that's why we always needed to stay with simplicity. And my point is, like, we couldn't really, let's say, come up with a theme for the uncle, with a theme for Joel, with a theme for Herschel, with a theme for Ginger. We wanted to stay humble in a way, you
Yes.
know.
Yes. Yes.
So that's why it was quite hard also to make sure the music was not going to be too repetitive, and to have enough elements that would, personalize John and George, and at the same time stay simple. So that was an interesting question, because I think I even didn't realize that before we were talking about this.
Guillaume, how did you work with Ashley? Did you write the principal themes while she was still shooting, or did you write the majority of the score while she was, editing, and she kept sending you scenes and so on? How did that work?
Well, mainly was when she was editing the movie, since they were like, in the movie there is, I think, an hour and 50 minutes of music, and so that all those minutes of music have been written while she was editing. But the important stuff, the theme, and some sounds that we have been using as the main sound of Beauty, we have been elaborating it while she was shooting.
How did Kate Winslet's narration change the trajectory of the score? Did this influence you in any way?
Well, that was another challenge of the movie, is that at the end, the Kate Winslet's voices came on very late when everything was already written. That was quite challenging, because I was kind of writing to a temporary voice, knowing that the final voice, the Kate Winslet's voice, will be recorded at the very end with quite possibly different intonation, different rhythm. And I have to say that I was very, very nervous about this, because from day one of the editing, my music, I was writing the music to that temporary voice. Like, let's say, just after a line with a very important thing, I was leaving the voice alone, and then after she ended up saying something very important, then the music unfolds. You know what I mean? Those things,
Yes.
those common things, obviously. But like, uh, to me, it's so important to craft something that is really to the frame, to the voice, to all those elements. That, knowing that that was going to change after all, I was like very nervous. So at the end of the process, when we got that final voice, then I obviously, a lot of bets were like right at the same place as they used to be, so it was okay. But some other places where things have been changing with the new voice, then I had to go back, and that was a challenging moment, I have to say, because it was at the very last moment. We were we were getting ready for the recordings, preparing all those scores, the PDF and all that stuff, and then all those little details because of the voice were changing, and suddenly I ended up, you know, fixing those little details that seems to be little details, but when you're preparing a session for 60 musicians to play it, then it's a lot of work to
Yeah.
to make adjustments. And when suddenly all those little moments pile up, and you end up having 40 adjustments to make, at the end, I didn't sleep too much, I have to say.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, after all, I mean, it was a lot of work, and you had to capture the spirit of the Mustang and the spirit of the whole score. And Guillaume, I would like to briefly talk about the inspiration which David Proctor's cinematography may have offered to you. I mean, we are talking about the change of location, the countryside to the city of New York. How does that inspire you?
Uh, I have to say that in this project, I wasn't so much focused on the cinematography, even if I think that David Proctor did a great job, and to make this movie look like it looks. It's what he did was is great, and but the thing is that I was so involved into the characters, their emotions, their inner emotions, that I wasn't so much paying attention to it, I have to say. There was, when you're trying to put emotions on a horse, you really have to be working on something more inner, something inside the characters. It's and especially that relationship between two characters that don't really speak to each other. We're talking about something that is very, um, very deep inside the soul, and that's why I was not really paying attention to something that was too outside the soul and the spirit, I have to say, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. It makes perfect sense, and thank you very much. And I must say the film offered some very likable characters, great characters, and Joe and her uncle, and but also some, yeah, disagreeable ones. For instance, George's mother, played by Claire Fogliani, she was just a terrible person.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
But I think the whole project turned out very well. It's a lovely movie with lots of ups and downs for the characters, for Joe, her uncle, who had to sell the premises, and then at the end it turned out fine. So there were scenes of hope and drama, and I can imagine watching actors and their performances and mannerisms and following their emotions is also very important for your job at the end.
Oh yeah, and definitely in any movie, and I think even more on a Disney movie, you need bad guys anyway, Uh, so it's all about light and shadow, and this is so important. And obviously, every actor has a different approach to their character, and when some actors are playing it very like in a very subtle way, so you can only guess, and the music is gonna be more. Um, Suggesting and be more on a subtle way, just supporting what they're acting. I mean, sometimes the actors are could be like playing more over the top, sort of speak. Not that I'm saying this is bad, but you know what I mean. It's like some actors put more energy in acting. So
Yes.
suddenly the music, it's a difficult balance because the music, rather to be on in phase with the actor, needs to be over the top as well. But sometimes it's the other way around. When the actor puts a lot of energy, then the music should rather be very humble. So this combination of how the music react to a specific kind of acting is an equation that there is no I don't think there is a magical recipe. It depends on the scene. It depends of the movie, the aesthetic of the movie, depend of the vision of the director. There is so many elements, but like you're right, the way an actor work and personalize the character will have an impact on the music, and then this is something a composer needs to be working out for sure.
I have noticed that your score has been featured and mentioned on some best of 2020 lists, which I think is a well deserved and great accolade. And it could be a major stepping stone for you. I mean, now you are a part of the elite list of composers that has worked on a Disney movie, and that's a great accomplishment.
Well, thank you so much. To I would take that compliment. I mean, I don't know if I'm part of an elite, but I definitely feel so grateful to be to know that I've been, scoring a Disney movie. It feels like unreal to me. I have been so inspired by Disney since my young age. There is so many things that have been, that I'm still like a kid when I think about Disney. So knowing that I'm part of that is a dream coming true. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure this will bring more joy into my life. But to be able to have been able to work on a Disney movie is already something that I consider as an accomplishment. So
Yes,
yes, it's
yes,
great.
and
I feel happy.
rightfully so. And I'm sure that your music and also the film directed by Ashley will bring joy to so many other people, and they can find some inspiration in that. And if I may ask, what's actually next for you? Have you even spoken to Ashley about future collaborations yet?
Oh yeah, yeah. She's an incredible person who has so many ideas, so many inspiration, and there is nothing I really can tell. It's probably too soon, but she has a lot of and a few projects that could be extremely interesting, even like only on a music perspective. That could be extremely exciting and challenging. But she really I would trust in her talent because she she's as a writer she's incredibly inspired. She sent me some ideas for other projects, and I was amazed. So yeah, yeah, there is like great things coming, I'm sure. I mean, despite the fact that we are in a very weird situation, and who knows when things are going to go back to normal, because we still are very impacted by what is happening right now.
Yes.
And like, but in a very um, to answer your question, I'm currently working on some project, a French project actually, because I'm lucky to have also many connections and collaborators in France, which is a totally different world that I always like to be involved in, because it's a different type of movies, different type of workflow, and different approach. But like there is great collaborators, people, great talents in France as well, and all over Europe, obviously. And so right now I'm working on two French features. So I'm very busy, but yeah, so it's going well.
Great. Glad to hear that. And Guillaume, is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, I think it's a movie that really has been allowing me to fulfill a lot of dreams and to write a certain type of music. And I um, I still think that there is a lot for me to experiment, but to be able to express emotions on that extraordinary story. That I understand why this book became so famous, because that kind of puts you into a perspective, you know. And I really hope people will enjoy the movie.
Guillaume, thank you very much for taking so much time out of your schedule. I really appreciate that. I had a great time talking to you, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation as well.
Yes, very much so. Anytime.
Great. And I hope you will have a nice day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'm looking forward to chatting again down the road.
All right, Michael, thank you so much. Stay safe in Germany, and again, thank you so much. It was great. So more than happy to do it again.
Great. Thank you very much. Take care.